a little bit of a shout out to and discuss was the remarkable drive, and he's fortunately for him able to start a little bit. I think far. No, he's back at again because he didn't get a time in qualifying for this round either. But Alberto De Folco. In the pro category, he will be starting 42nd on the field. And you'd think, well, it's impossible for him to podium at that stage. I mean, no. In that race earlier today, with everything that transpired and a absolutely sterling drive up through the pack, he did exactly that and fought his way up to third in the pro category. It was something along the order of 14th, 15th overall, but still in all, just a remarkable drive, and ninth overall, actually. And it closed. He made up. He went from 7th to 5th in the points as a result. No give up in these guys. That's what you have to do, isn't it?
Not at all. But if you look now today, that was a tough job this morning.
Yeah.
With this rain, one of the things is going to be visibility, absolutely. And being behind a 42-car field as they go down into turn one, he's not going to be able to see a thing. So he may have an advantage with just being a great driver, knowing how to adapt to these conditions quickly. But he's going to have a very big disadvantage with visibility.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day for people buried down in the pack just a little bit. No question about that. Again, Petra Kujala getting the win, and as I was just talking about here, a remarkable 9th win in 11 events this year. He already had the championship clinched, and so basically what we're looking at here, some of the battles a little bit farther back in the pack. Can Cristani Fabrizio and Sergio Campana, can they make their way up into the second spot? They're 14 points back, so in theory it's possible. Shinya Mishimi and Kai Francesco Cozzolano, the opportunity possibly to move up a couple of points as well. I mean, it's that close. And then Alberto De Folca right there now, 5th in the points, only 4 out of 4th. So, that's still in the mix. Certainly, it's interesting to see what's unfolding here in the European Huracan Pro-Am division because the team that started the day second in the points by 3 ended up winning the class, and that was Luis Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini for Antonelli Motorsport. They got the win in Pro-Am with a great run up to 3rd overall. The team that entered the day leading in the points, that was Mikko Escalenen and Kelvin Snokes for Leipert Motorsport with that 3-point lead, finished 6th. So that's the swing. So now we've got new leaders in the Huracan Pro-Am category, and we'll see how that's going to play out. And the interesting thing there is not too far behind them. I mean, Adrian Amstutz is right in the mix still, as is Rafael Giannoni. So a couple of drivers that still have some opportunities to make some moves here in this. And the interesting thing is the championship is at play, which not so much in some of the other classes right now.
Yeah, you got to think with that change in position, all season those guys have probably been in attack mode, and now suddenly they find themselves in the championship, which has to completely change your outlook on how the day is going. Now you've got everything. You got to do everything you can do to protect that lead. And it's interesting how this morning it swung and how those teams – I wonder if they had any different preparation, did anything differently for this afternoon.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. In the AM category, remember Shota Abakazawa came in with a pretty substantial lead, and in the final finishing order, he ended up 4th in the AM category, and he padded that lead up just a little bit. Winners in the AM class for the Huracan AM category were Cedric Leimer and Laurent Geny, and in just taking a look at where they came in the AM category in terms of the points, they were down the order quite a bit, so it really didn't really have any effect on Shota Abkazawa's championship points. Second in the AM category was Steve Tandy. He, too, came in the weekend rather well back in that AM championship run for Imperiale Racing and doing a great job, the Briton did. And then third in AM was Jürgen Krebs, who we talked about. And Jürgen comes in here 4th in the championship, starting that race, and was 7 points back. So with Mark Ineken not having a very good run, that's an opportunity as Krebs has closed in a little bit. But Shota right now, I think the championship is pretty much in his pocket in that category. Is the same deal there. And in the Gallardo class, there was a clinch with that second place finish for Karina Lima and Andrea Palma. Karina, just a tremendous drive by her and her teammate Andrea in that car. They came in with a 30-point margin with a second-place finish. Nobody can touch that in that 11th round. So the championships, in a lot of the classes are pretty much set, except for that Pro-Am category. And we really haven't yet even gotten into the Asian series, but that one was a stretch here. We talked about David Rizzo having a pretty a margin, but not huge, of some 11 points, make that 9 points, over Juan Bo and Eduardo Liberati. And, the way that race checked out, I think we're going to just make sure on that and give you the order here. But Juan Bo and Eduardo Liberati got the win, and you take a look at where David Rizzo finished, and he was down the order just a little bit and finished 6th in that Pro-Am class. So there's a big swing. I think they'll now, with the way that the points pay out, they're going to be almost dead even coming into this final round. That's going to be a great battle.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Getting a lot of good looks around the racetrack here and seeing what areas of the track are wet, which ones are dry. And obviously it's all wet, but you can see when you look at the asphalt here, certain areas puddle up and certain areas have a different sheen to them. And those are some of the things these drivers are going to run into. Trying to evaluate the grip levels on those different areas is going to be tough. And you also wonder here, too, is even if the asphalt is uniform, the area online is going to have a whole lot less grip than it would offline. So there's a lot that these drivers are going to be faced with in the next couple of minutes, and trying to have a championship decided in this condition, I don't envy these guys.
That's tough, isn't it? Yeah. And yeah, you're looking at the rain line is not necessarily rarely where the fast line is in the dry. Just getting some word from race control. It looks like they have declared it wet, and what they're going to do now is the field, which is already gridded on the front straight, is going to literally go up and come counter race into pit lane to their pit boxes, change their tires, then come back out and just re-grid so we don't have a full lap to run, and then they'll let them go for the pace lap to give them some opportunity. But the interesting thing is, Spencer, you're looking that way down toward turn 1. That's still a fairly threatening sky, but the other way, starting to clear up again.
Yeah, as quickly as this came, it can go away, and it won't take long for these cars, especially with high downforce, to suck that water up off the racetrack and give them a dry line. And if you're stuck out there with wet race or with rain tires on a wet track, it's no problem. But as it dries, those tires get hotter and harder and eventually start to chunk, and you can find yourself late in the race with tires that are literally coming apart.
Yep, got to watch for that, and here's that process that is going to begin right now. In the Huracan Am class for the Asian Championship, as we had talked about, Akira Mizutani and Hajime Noma came in with a pretty substantial lead and have that championship clinched. But the interesting thing, second in the points isn't here, which moves up Takeshi Kimura. With that finish this morning would move him up, I think, into second. So, but he too had a nice little margin back to third. So, things are pretty settled in a few of the classes here. But in each of them, that Pro-Am class is going to be exciting, and we'll be watching that with great interest.
You've called races here for a long time. I've driven in races here for a long time. I have to say, this is a first. I've never once seen a field of cars come counter race down pit road before. But this is a great idea. I mean, this is the perfect solution. It gets everyone back to where they need to be quickly and then back on the grid. So a good call by the officials here.
I think it's a great call, absolutely. Instead of sending them out on slicks to carefully try and survive a lap, just bring them into pit lane and get that change done and get back out and the like. So this is going to be interesting to see how effective it is. And I guess it shouldn't be any issue with the cars facing the wrong direction in the pits, because it's they're up on air jacks and you just bring the guns out and make the tire change.
Yeah,
anyway.
There's no fuel rig to worry about
Exactly.
what side of the car is on or air one. So it should. This is a great solution here. Gives me an idea that we could run oval races here.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe get out the Legends cars.
Yeah.
How fun would that be? Absolutely. So, have you driven this track in the wet?
It's been a long time. As I get older, I start to remember all the sessions tend to blend together.
I can imagine.
But I do remember in 2003, it rained here for Sebring night practice. And coming on the front straightaway, you'd hit the paint that marked the old logo on start finish. Mm-hmm. And you had no idea what would happen at that point. Obviously the tires would go spin right away. The engine would get to the rev limiter. The car would go whatever direction it felt like going at the moment. And then it would all hook up at once as you got off the paint, and that would cause even more problems. So this place can get pretty sketchy, especially in the straightaways if they're standing water. And, man, when you cross start finish, watch for that paint.
Well, and that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? You look at this when we're talking about, the parts of the track that are actually tarmac, that have been paved and the like. different story. It's wet. Hopefully there's that little crown that runs off. But on these concrete slabs, essentially, of these old runways, there's a little bit of the concave to it just from where you can see these little pools come up. So that makes things an interesting mix as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the scariest moments in the wet here have been on the straightaways for me. And there's a point when you're racing where you can no longer really commit to full throttle down the straightaway. And that point, to me, that's when it starts to get away from the actual racing and more into just daredevil type of situation. It's hard to kind of commit to being fast at that point when you really don't have control of the car in the straightaway. And taking risks is really easy to do, and there's very low reward. So hopefully this will dry out quickly. On wet tires, I think it'll be fine. We're not seeing more rains following this, so it wouldn't be a problem. But it can be tricky for sure.
And one of the things that they can do during that 10-minute window is do a tire change. That is allowed. It's a matter of whether you can get that done in 10 minutes. If it's in that minute stationary stop that we're talking about, whether it's something that the team has practiced, whether you've got the guns to be able to do that. But you are allowed to do it. As far as I know, it's not anything we saw it happen at a couple of races previously last season. So I think it's something that can be done. It's just a matter of how quick can it be executed. But if you got, as you said, and as good as these Pirelli P0s are, and their rain tires are also very, very solid, once it dries, and what people sometimes don't think about, correct, is to get grip in a rain tire. Yeah, you have the sipes and the channels in the tire to get rid of the water, but it still has to generate some heat to get the grip to the track. That means uber soft compounds, and that means excessive heat when it dries.
Yeah, exactly. And for the people at home that aren't familiar with the racing, these slick tires are absolutely abysmal if there's any water on the racetrack. You think it's a big car and it's got a lot of grip, but once you get to over standing water, the car drives like it's on ice. You can literally go full left, full right, full brake, full gas. The car will simply continue down. It's just the path it decided to go down, and so it's really treacherous being out there with slick tires. But as the track starts to dry, it gets worse and worse for the rains. And if you can make the stop early and get in those dry tires, there's very frequently a yellow, in situations like that. So you have an advantage over the rest of the field that then has to pit behind you, and you'll pass them as you stay out on course as everyone else pits. So I think, the cars that are risky and are willing to take the risk to go to slicks as the track gets closer to dry, you might see an advantage later on. The ones that stay out on the wet tires, they might have to make a late stop as the tires start to chunk. So again, not only do they have to decide this championship in conditions that are very difficult on a track they haven't seen before yesterday at all in the wet, and a bunch of different changing surfaces, but throw in now strategy on a drying track, and that's assuming it's going to continue to dry. It makes this one very tense championship.
Boy, doesn't it? And you talk about, you think it's a heavy car, but with that slick tire where there's nowhere for the water to go, there's a certain density, and it's just pure physics, right? That once you get to that point, the water builds up with nowhere to go underneath. The car's hydroplaning. That's why they call it that, and that's why you've got to have those channels to get that water out. So it's going to be interesting.
For those of you who are watching, yes, that was a cat that ran across the track. It's raining cats, maybe not dogs, but definitely some wildlife out there. There are actually a lot of cats that frequent this area, so I hope he or she is safe.
It looks like we got a number of the cars now have actually completed the change. I saw a couple. At first I thought they were going behind the wall, but I guess they couldn't get to their pit stall right up by that wall, so they had to wait for just a minute.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be some logistics issues as they do this. This is new territory, but it's certainly doing a good job, and these cars should be back on the grid and ready to go here.
And I'm just monitoring race control here to try and get anything in terms of protocol changes that we should be aware of. And they're sending the safety car out for a lap right now. You just saw it on the left of the screen as it headed down into turn one. And just for simple observation at this point, I mean, it looks like the rain has lightened up a little bit, but a lot of I think the movement we're seeing in the water that you might mistake for raindrops is wind. It's just moving it around, which there's a positive side to that. And if that's what it is, it helps it dry quicker.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, two things that you want are sunlight. Three things: sunlight, wind, and then race cars on the racetrack. That tends to dry it out. So the sun isn't quite peaked out, but if we can get this wind kicking up, that's going to help make this track dry. And of course, as it dries, you're always going to have one line of the racetrack that dries first, and that makes passing very difficult because the person who is on that line has a lot of grip. So if you want to pass, you've got to try to be faster with less grip offline. So a lot, like I said, the guys that have decided this championship already, I'm sure are just sighing a big breath of release.
Absolutely.
This thing is locked up.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's there's got at a certain point, you have to have some big bravado to be able to execute some of these passes here. Just letting everybody know here at the track. Everybody at the track that the Snack Shack will be closing at 4. And again, the only reason I mention that is we're getting pushed back and delayed, so people may be curious about that. So just wanted to let them know. But we're watching and ready for this one to complete here. And we're just waiting. The safety car is out on a recon lap of sorts and checking things out. And then we'll get a little bit of an update and see what's going to play here. You were talking about driving that and especially when it's wet, and then you get that small groove. And I was here, and I'm trying to. It was back when Steve Millen was driving the Nissans.
I was telling you about 2003 earlier. I think you're going to even predate that. We're definitely showing our age at this point,
aren't we? Yeah, it's sad, but yeah, I'm going back to I think late 90s.
Yeah,
and. It was an amazing. It was something that you realize the guys with the gift like you, what is capable. Millen came out in that fire-breathing GTS quality car, right, for qualifying, and it was limited cars on the track, and they're all of course tracking in pretty much the same spot. So you literally had 2 grooves. And in between it was still damp. So, I mean, it wasn't like you had this lane you could be in. It was these 2 kind of grooves. But it got to the point where those grooves were dry.
Mm-hmm.
Millen broke the track record in qualifying, and a display of precision driving was just stunning. So, when that's the gift, isn't it?
For sure, for sure.
Having that level of feel,
and commitment.
Yeah, well, truly, be willing to do it,
and confidence,
and then able to do it. Yeah.
I think there's a lot that goes into a lap like that. Probably have to have a pretty good car too, but
good car, set up perfectly. I mean, everything has to just work. Amazing things happen here at Sebring. I remember there was back when Jeff Brabham was driving the Nissan here, the prototype car, and he ended up at about 10 at night, broke the track record in the dark, and that was back when it was dark here. Yeah. And I asked him afterwards. I said, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Well," I think what it is he said. At night when it was that dark, all of those references that go flying by you at speed that give you the sense of fear are gone. So you're just so in the zone, it's brake, turn in, apex, track out, throttle, go. And he said when they called and said that I'd broken the record, he said it didn't feel that much faster than any lap I'd done. He said they just said, "You just broke the record, mate."
Yeah, I've been in that situation where things that look scary in the daytime, you can't see them at night. You're just looking at the immediate references that you need to drive around the track, and sometimes that actually makes things slow down. You talked about how it's dark here. Nowadays at Sebring, they use a lot of the lights and the generators to light up certain areas, and I think it's great for the fans, but it certainly has changed the feel. You don't really feel like you're racing at night here. Well, obviously it feels like you're racing at night, but it's not so dark that you ever struggle to see what's ahead of you, whereas I think a couple of years ago it wasn't the case. You really needed good headlights, and even then you still had some really dark areas of the track.
Absolutely. I remember Hurley Haywood telling a story about he was out and driving, and he said there was this orange dot up, and he said, "I'm thinking, is that a reflection off something that's bouncing off my windshield?" Because and he said it was it looked like it was growing, but not a lot, and he said, and right as I realized what it was, he said, I dynamited the brakes, and he said, the guy in front of me had lost his taillights, and it was the orange glow off of his tack that was sitting up in the GT car, and he said, I went off at such a rate of speed, and if I hadn't, he said, I'd have clobbered it. That's some of the history and the stories here. And you walk through the media center here, and you see the pictures from back in the 50s when they were running of, the Chaparral, going by, I think, in 1966, and 2 photographers laying in the grass, about 5 feet off of the track, no barriers, taking their. I mean, that's the history of this sport. It's just literally played out here, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. The reason why this place is here is because I thought we had another animal running across the track, but we didn't. That's a reflection from the bridge. Yeah, racing on public roads was outlawed in 1952, and a lot of the sports car enthusiasts were the military brass that were over in Europe. And while we were cultivating stock car racing down south and Indy racing up in the Midwest, we, you know, a lot of the people that were sports cars enthusiasts had ties to the military. So they, when the racing on the streets was no longer legal, they invited the racing community into their bases and onto their runways. And this is one of those tracks that still to this day lives. You know, now it's a racetrack in a dedicated airport, but it used to be one and the same. And they would actually suspend flights so they could use the runways. And then as soon as the race was over, off they'd be taking off. And I remember
Silverstone, it was the same story.
Yeah, exactly.
It was an RAF base. Yeah.
I remember talking to some of my dad's buddies that said that, you know, it would get so dark on these runways and it was so wide open that they would get lost and not have any references until another car would come back around. That was the only way they'd know after, say, a spin that kind of disoriented them which way to go. So we got good signs here. We got the cars coming back to grid and hopefully properly equipped with the right Pirelli rain tires. And
all the personnel that aren't under the bridges saw umbrella and raincoats, so the rain has stopped. So this is going to get interesting.
Of course.
Because in 10, 15, 20 minutes, they may have to do it all again once this race starts.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun. That's why we hold it. Again, you'll notice all the cars that you see on your screen right there, if the number is preceded with a 2, that means it is the Asian Series. If it's preceded with a 1, that means it is the European Series. And, boy, you put it, you know, to have gone through 11 rounds of this championship and have that final round, and certainly in the Pro-Am category for both, to have it determined in this kind of conditions, it's going to be pretty fascinating. So, yeah, I would think if they can even make it to that 20-minute mark, everybody's coming in.
Yeah, but it's going to be tough because if you commit early, you're not in that window when you have to pit.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to do another pit stop.
Yep.
So you're going to have to really push if it dries, and assuming it does dry. You know, the rain has stopped. We're getting reports that, you know, it's already starting to dry up in spots. So obviously you still need the wet tires. You can see the standing water in the racetracks. You'd be insane to try to run on slicks at the moment. But in a couple laps after these cars get out there and start circulating, we're going to see some drying racetrack, and then they're going to have to make a decision. Do we come in, go to
early,
slicks? Yeah, and what's that going to cost us time-wise? And are the slicks such an advantage that it'll make that back up? So
and I haven't heard anything from race control about a change of protocol to change that window. So at least at this stage, that's how it's going to play here. And, boy, this is nice. This is good news. Just seeing almost every car now has exited pit lane. If there's one tucked behind something there, that is the – I couldn't quite grab that number. But that may have been the 109 of the pole sitter, Patrick Niederhauser. No, he's already up in position there, so it must be the team car, one of the Raton Racing entries. And there you can see it, folks. You just take a look. There's that puddling in a lot of places down along the track. There, taking his grid position on the outside of the front row. Your champion, crowned 2 rounds ago, the final race of the doubleheader at the Nürburgring in Germany. Patrick Kujala, 19-year-old Finn. He's done some GP3 racing, and you know, from a small, lightweight but still not huge horsepower formula car to step into something like this, he's made that transition beautifully.
Yeah, definitely a different beast here. And, you know, not only is it a different car, but it's a different feel as you sit in the cockpit. It's a different driving style completely. And a lot of the guys that try to make the transition have a hard time, but certainly he's done a great job.
Oh, we have a car there, that blue car you just saw off to the side of the screen, just came out from the paddock. And apparently they may not have had the ability, the equipment to change the tires there. And so they had to go back into the paddock, and he came out and did what he would normally do, just come out of the paddock, take a right into pit lane, and go queue up. So maybe he's expecting, since they went behind the wall, that he's going to have to start at the back of the field. So all right, getting confirmation on that car from race control, and as we suspected, if you had to go behind the wall, you give up your grid position. So once the race starts, after the last car completes the pace lap, takes the green and goes through turn 1, any cars that had to go behind the wall for these changes will be released from pit lane, and we now have an official 3-minute board. Just so you know, Spencer stepped out for a second. He'll be right back And getting word from race control, 2 pace laps. And getting confirmation that the clock for the race start, again, it's a 50-minute timed event, will begin at the end of the first pace lap. So the second lap will essentially be as though it were a full course caution. Clock will start as they come by at the end of the first lap. Clock starts. I think that's a great idea because as we've been talking about here, this series in particular, these 2 series, the European and the Asian series, do not necessarily have drivers here have much experience at all on this track or this type of track. And this track is so unique. I think it's a brilliant idea to say, all right, we're going to run the normal pace lap, and then we're going to do one more to really let you guys find out. And, that's a key thing, isn't it, Spencer? Because you're going to have scenarios where you in these conditions, you literally want to explore a little bit. Where is their grip? So you might move offline and see what the car does. And is this grippier than where I ran last lap? Just to find it.
Call it a pace lap, but oftentimes people refer to it as a recon lap, and that's because the drivers are doing reconnaissance. There's really you can't explore the entire width of the racetrack to find the grip in one lap, but you can certainly get some ideas of where it's good and not good. A lot of times if we're behind the pace car, I might go wide in a corner and just crank the wheel and see, even at a low speed, how it reacts to get an idea of if the grip's better online or offline. And these guys, I guarantee you, will be doing the exact same thing. So the more time they can get out there before they go green, the better, I think. And again, we talked about how difficult of a situation this is. This will help just a little bit and make it maybe just that much safer for everybody.
And I've certainly never driven at this level or your level, but one of those things where you sort of learn by accident kind of a deal. My home track was at Brainerd, Minnesota, Brainerd International Raceway, and the first time I ever raced there in the rain, and I was out in qualifying, and I really didn't have much idea. We'd never been there in the wet, wasn't sure on the rain line. I don't know if you're familiar with the track, but the last turn there is a pretty tight corner. It leads onto a mile-long front straight, so it's a hugely important corner. And I came whistling into that turn, and my foot slipped off the brake. And it's wet. I mean, it's wet. And I just went, oh, boy, I'm going straight off. Well, it's slightly banked. And I went off the normal line, and the car just hooked up and shot around the corner. That was the the light bulb going off.
Was that the pole?
So, well, it was. It got me second in class, and it was in a car that didn't have any straight line speed on a track with a mile-long straight. I didn't do too well in qualifying normally, but the car handled great and could race well. But that was it. It was just so. Then turn 1 and 2 were banked, and so I started rim shotting those corners and stuff. And it's just amazing. Sometimes where you see the hot dog wrappers and debris, that's the fast line in the wet. And speaking of fast lines, we're going to get them going here. And these bulls are taking to the track here in a wet arena. This one should be fun as we're out now. Again, first of 2 essentially pace laps. And the cars will go out. The clock, however, remember, will start at the conclusion of the first of these 2 safety laps, if you will. And the car that sits in pit lane will be released at that point.
Yeah, so if you're unfamiliar, hadn't had the opportunity to drive in the wet, what happens is as the cars over time drive on the racing line, the asphalt is changed in 2 ways. First, all the rubber, all the fluid, anything coming off of the race car gets put down on the line where the cars drive the most. So that becomes slick for that reason. And the other thing, too, is that the asphalt's new. It's got a lot of sharp edges. It's very grippy. And over time, those sharp edges wear down. So there's a lot of reasons why the cars just simply don't like to be in the wet where they do on the dry. And so they'll try to find out exactly how bad the wet line is or how much better the wet line is than the dry line as they go through these 2 laps.
Whoop.
Yep, there's one already off.
Yeah, well, you're exploring the line, and
I think he's got an issue with his car. It doesn't.
Did you find the
yeah,
line?
definitely something wrong there.
Maybe he just
Or maybe just lit him up and coming back on, and that's what we were saying. Yeah, it looks okay now.
Yep. I think we're seeing that because guys are just gassing it and then easing off and gassing it, although for some reason, he does. Yeah, that left rear, a little bit of an issue. So
yeah, with that late
may
tire
have happened
change.
by going off. Yeah.
Well, too, with that
Or the
late tire change, too.
That's possible as well. So, but here you can see what we were talking about, Spencer, and we're starting to see the light brightening out there. But that mist and spray coming up in the air. I mean, it's one thing when you're in that position of Patrick Niederhauser in that gold 109 from Raton Racing. He's got the clear visibility, but everybody behind him, all that mist is going to be coming right up into their faces.
Yeah, but the mist is actually a good sign that the track is still wet enough to run on the wet tires.
Right.
As a driver, I always look over the pit wall before I get out in a session to see if there's any misting from the session before. And as long as I see those trails coming off the cars, and I know it's safe to go out in the wets and you're not going to burn them up. So once those start to go away as this race progresses, then we'll know it's going to be time to make those pit stops soon.
You know, I think that car that maybe during that tire change, as you said, maybe didn't locate quite right on the wheels. I think that was our champion and winner of this morning, Kujala.
Yeah, you know, these guys are probably not 100% prepared to do a tire change in pit lane. They probably bring down the stuff they need, but it's not something they do all the time.
Right.
They're used to torquing those lugs underneath the tent and bringing the cars ready to go. So it might have just caught the team off guard, and maybe it wasn't buttoned up right, but it's just too bad to see.
It is.
Now, he does have another lap under yellow.
Good point.
Which means he will be able to come back and catch the field. So it won't be anything more than track position. But when you got a 42-car field,
that
track position, especially with the spray and the mist,
yeah, exactly,
it's going to be important.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he was up in the front row, and if he could have got the jump on Niederhauser, then he's got that nice clear track, and now he's got to deal with that. And here you can see that's down the Ullman Straight now, and that's back on the concrete taxiways, and that spray suddenly just erupts off the back of these cars here. So it's one thing to go out and you might think, well, you know, from the turns, 3 all the way up into tower turn, oh, that's good. You know, we'd be okay on a slick, and then you hit this, and it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's really tough when half the track is driving faster than the other half. I mean, here it looks full on wet, whereas over by turn 10 it looked like, we might be trying a couple laps. So,
you know, and the interesting thing, looking at that sky, if it turns a little bit, it comes right back, it can start raining again.
As fast as that rain came before this race started, it could show up again.
Look at those puddles.
Yeah, big puddles here.
And that's those bumps. That's right where those bumps are, so there's just nowhere for the water to go. So you obviously probably have to change your arc a little bit into and out of turn 17 and 1, I would think. Huh?
Yeah, you do, for sure. And then look at this line on the right side by the wall. That's the lane a lot of these guys are going to want to use to start to get in the inside.
Yep.
Now, of course, sometimes the outside's got more grip, as we talked about, but that just further complicates the situation here. They won't even be able to see those puddles with the spray before they hit them.
Well, that's the other side of it. Yeah, you got that spray, and you may, everything's fine, and you come unsighted and find something like that. And, for people that, if you've been driving, on the interstate and you hit that puddle and suddenly that car just feels like it's floating, it is, and that's what they're doing, only probably at 2 to 3 times the rate of speed you were doing it on the interstate.
Yeah, with a lot closer proximity to traffic, too.
Exactly. So, well, that's part of the challenge, and road racing, that's part of the deal. You do it, and you get out there and you do it when it's wet.
It's the allure of Sebring, too.
Yeah, boy, isn't it?
It's not easy.
Something else. And exactly, that's the challenge, and that's the character, and that's the thing that a lot of drivers talk about.
Yeah, if you look at it right here, you don't see any spray coming off the cars at all.
Yep.
So it's just this part of the track. And say, hey, let's go try slicks now.
And again, people that have followed racing and rain racing and the like will be aware of this, but for people that might be tuning in and catching this, when you're in one of those scenarios where you've got parts of the track that are drying and your reins are starting to go overheated, you'll actually see guys driving way off the normal line looking for puddles, quite literally, to cool those tires.
Yeah, that's something, you hate to have to do, but it's the last-ditch effort to keep those tires underneath you. And we might see a little bit of that today. I wouldn't be surprised.
I had the good fortune of doing the track call at the U.S. Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas this year, and it started wet, and Daniel Ricciardo was going over the curbs and getting his tires on the inside of the curbs where there were deep puddles to save his inters, and went to the front as a result. When the other guy started over it, once it dried out, the other cars obviously came back, but just brilliant management, and that's part of the game too. Is you've got to find the solutions. It's adaptability.
Yeah, I've had the rain tires get dry to the point where they've started to literally throw the treads off the tire, and you can hear them hitting the fender wells as you drive. So you wonder how bad it can get. It can get really bad.
That can't be comfortable.
It's not a fun feeling,
knowing that your tires are literally coming apart underneath you. And again, it isn't anything against the tires. No tire can survive excessive heat, whether it's just being abused, driven too hard, locked up and the like, or that scenario where you've got the wrong tire on at the time. It doesn't matter how good the tire's built, it can't do it unless it's an absolute brick, which would offer absolutely no grip to start with and is rather pointless in a racing application. So, well, here we go. Should be seeing the green next time by. I have not heard anything from race control indicating that they need to do another lap at this stage. Matter of fact, safety car just calling race control and saying, are we going green this lap? Because they haven't been asked. Normally those lights would be off over by the tower turn, and race control's reply, we're evaluating. So there's still some concern about what's going to happen. But again, officially, the clock has started. Good look at the number 114. That is the car that sits on the Pro-Am pole. Fourth overall, that's Roberto Pampanini and Milos Pavlovic for Sport Tech Motorsports.
Yeah, pace car lights are still on. They'd normally be off at this point. At this point, I would doubt they would turn them off, throw them, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, well, they just got confirmation they're doing one more pace lap. And again, I have no qualms with that at all in these conditions. And it'd be a whole different deal, of course, if it was drivers that had a lot of laps and were very familiar with the teams and all that. This is a series that doesn't run here. This is very new territory, and I think that's a brilliant call.
Yeah, for sure. I think erring on the side of caution here
Yeah.
is certainly fair for everyone, especially the guys with the championships on the line. You know, let everyone take their time, learn what they can learn in these 3 recon laps. Then I think it'll be a good, fair race. We'll have a much better chance of having good outcomes.
Absolutely. By the way, that 114 of Pampanini and Pavlovic finished 10th in Pro-Am. Didn't have the race they wanted this morning. So this is a pretty important one for them. And boy, starting from that pole, they really want to be able at this point to make hay while the rain falls. That doesn't work, does it? Mixing metaphors here badly.
Yeah. Look at it. A good look at the front straightaway. Still have that puddling down the right side. So even though these cars are circulating, and you can see the mist here, now these drivers are going to have to drive through this into turn 1. You still have a good amount of water on the racetrack. I'm also going to be curious to see who does commit to a rain line. You know, I talked about how the rain line has more grip. There is a downside to it, though. It's a lot further away around the racetrack, and your radius is a lot smaller. So if you can find a way to make your car actually find grip on the dry line, that's oftentimes an advantage. So the drivers always have to take a chance and a gamble and see which one's going to work better. And you might see some guys trying both almost within the same lap to try to get an idea of where each line works better. But a lot of times, you know, if the track has been recently sealed or some concrete patches have put down and there's still a little tack to the road, not a lot of rubber down, the dry line could actually work. Or maybe it doesn't work as well as it would offline, but the advantage of having the shorter line and the wider radius is enough to say that's the way to go.
You say for those you're watching that, I'm not sure when you talk about a tighter radius or wider radius, the arc through the corner, the tighter you make that corner, and if you're rim shotting it, it's got to be tighter for you to make that corner, because normally you go wide to the inside to back out, and as you tighten that up, you're slower, and then you're running a longer line, as you said.
Yeah, drivers are always trying to find the widest radius or the largest radius through any corner, and you know, the tighter you go, the slower you have to go. It's just simple physics. So these guys, sometimes though, extra grip on a tighter line can be better than less grip on a wider line, and when it's pouring down rain, typically the tighter arc with the grip is really the way to go. I always say that, you know, as it gets slicker, it can get to where you're really on ice and you have zero grip.
Yep.
And when grip goes down to zero, your radius is going to go infinite, which is a straight line. So sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try to turn the car, it's not going to turn. That's certainly not a spot in the racetrack you want to be.
And at this spot on the racetrack, lights out on the pace car. So we're anticipating going green this time by. But I was also looking at that shot looking the other direction at that sky.
Yeah, bright and sunny.
Here, and that camera pans the other way. I don't know how much farther this one's going to pitch around here. And if it kept going another 90 degrees to the left, it's ugly over there. So this is going to be fun and interesting. But lights out, we are going racing. And at this point, we are coming up on 7.5 minutes completed in the race. And if it stays dry, this might in a way solve some of those issues about the tires overheating and getting bad if it continues to dry. because now we've got a much shorter run to that pit window.
True, but it also means the cars are driving at speed, less on the track, so the drying won't happen as quickly.
Well,
so I think you're right. This could work out great. It could also get to the point where they're not ready to go to slicks as they get in that pit window. So you might see some teams pitting late in the window, and you might find that if you can't quite commit to slicks at the end of that pit window, there might be some late stops in the race.
Now, interestingly, we just got the call from race control that they are going to the double side-by-side start, as they would. Sometimes we've had series that would say, no, in these conditions we're going to start single file, but we're going double file. Had a look there at the number 115 of Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini winning in the race earlier today in the Pro-Am category, starting second, but they are 8th overall. And 4th overall is where the pole car starts of Pampanini and Milos Pavlovic. So here we go, starting to pair up. And again, I believe that was Kujala that is not there now. So it is going to be Niederhaus, and then Pampanini will move up and start. That's that yellow car. It says Sport Tech on it. We'll start now from the front row, so everybody shifted a little bit.
Lots of games being played here at the start.
Working their way around, and you know, there are driver aids obviously on these cars. You still have to be a little bit careful about getting too aggressive on the throttle, I would think, too.
Yeah, there are driver aids, but yeah, you got to definitely be careful everywhere here.
Yeah, it's only 620 horsepower. There's the green. I think it's smart that they went early with that green, too, to try and let these guys sort out. And there's that spray, Spencer.
Yeah, you cannot see a thing beyond the first 2-3 rows, and you can bet those guys in the back can't see beyond much there either. Whoa, moves to the inside.
Wow, that was an aggressive attempt.
Yeah, look at that car on the outside, though. It's got the rain line,
Smart.
and it's working pretty well.
Yeah, just sort of wrapped the outside, didn't he? And that moves up, and that pushes Pampanini back a spot, and that is, I think that's the 233 of Afig Yazid, who's the top place driver from the Asian Series on this grid, and started in that 4th spot after the problem for Kujala and just swept around the outside. He showed some very strong pace. Afig Yazid did in the morning race. And Florian Spengler is the guy that looked to go down the inside and then had to check up and actually lost a couple of spots as a result. And boy, what a chess match this is. You get the spots in the track where the spray's everywhere, and then you get over here, it's just little misty bits of spray. Then you get in spots where there's virtually no spray. And the grip changing, with every bit of that change of the spray, the grip changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, one thing you notice too is a lot of times the drivers will break down the inside of the track. Just like the corners can get polished, the brake zones can too. So you might find more grip in the middle. So you might think a guy's still going to make a pass, and he's just trying to find some more grip.
That's a very good point. Indeed. Now, first time up at speed into the tower turn. Pretty important corner here. It's the 114 of Pampanini and Pavlovic. Hanging on to that spot. Boy, right behind Niederhauser now is, Afig Yazid is racy right now. He wants to go. And spray or not, he is really starting to pressure Niederhauser here as they get through 15. Now through the Lamar curve, 16, and onto that straight. And watch the spray erupt once again. Yep, here it comes.
Yeah, really seeing a phenomenal job here by everyone. This first lap, the guys have been racing close, been very competitive, and I haven't seen anyone put even so much as a wheel wrong. There's been no sliding. Everything's been pretty hooked up. So far, great job. I'm really impressed by these guys.
And we were just seeing it right there. Sometimes it looks like a car showing the nose. You think pass? No, he's just trying to get clear of that spray.
This might be a pass for the lead here.
He get a run, didn't he? Yep. Side by each down this front straight, and Afig Yazid has the inside line. Now let's see if Niederhauser can carry the speed around the outside. And I think that was a good call this early in the race. Not really sure what the grip is. Has opted to tuck right back in again. But that number 114 of Pampanini under pretty solid attack here from Florian Spengler right there in that white number 133. Again, Pampanini runs in the Pro-Am category. Everybody around him right now are pros, so be honest with you, I'm not sure whether it is Pampanini or Pavlovic in the car, but both right now. That battle, that Pro-Am car hanging right in there.
He's not been able to get away like I thought he might. This is still a really tight battle for the lead. See one car getting pushed wide there, but there's a lot of grip out there, so it doesn't really work out too poorly.
And just for the record here, Milos Pavlovic in that 114 is the pro, and Pampanini is the amateur driver. And with the speeds we're seeing right now, it's got to be Pavlovic in that car because he's up against a group of pros around him, and they're holding on.
With the rain at the start, they may have decided to put their more experienced driver in, which would leave another amateur to finish, but that might be a better plan. If they can get a nice lead here, the amateur will have a much better job on a dry track.
I was going to say, get those tires changed and dry, then put the amateur. Yep, that's a very good call. And playing out right now up into the 5th spot overall. 4th in European Pro is the number 116. That started back in the 6th spot. And that, I'll check that number, make sure we're getting this right. Yep, back in the 6th spot of Shinya Michibi and Francesco Cozzolino. Both of them are rated pro drivers. You can see a little bit of a break being made now by what that looks like top 7.
Yeah, good little gap back to the rest of the field. Last lap was a 2-minute and 20-second lap, so about 19 seconds slower than they'd be in the dry. These teams are definitely going to monitor those lap times and see how well. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I just saw Florian Spengler. You can see air underneath those rear tires because he got off of the line and hit where the bumps get really aggressive. Was lucky to save that one, I think.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of grip out there, but there's also a lot of bumps out there. Bumps he probably wasn't familiar with at this point. You see the wide line working pretty well here through turn 1. Not everyone's committed to a full-on rain line, but there's certain spots where I see the field starting to make a move to the outside. It seems to be working pretty well. There's a perfect example right there. Yep. No one's really up to that apex. Everyone's just a couple car widths off and seem to be carrying pretty good speed.
Yeah, you can see right there Pavlovic in the 114 actually drove a tight line. There's that bump we just on the replay. You can see the air underneath those tires. That's what it's like when you get offline in some of the spots here. So, boy, just amazing what we're seeing here. And look at this. This Niederhauser taking a run, showing the nose. And the 133, boy, Spengler in that 133 is just ultra aggressive right now, isn't he?
Yeah, we're seeing that outside lane line. It was a mistake the first time. The next time through, he decided to use the same one, even though there wasn't anyone pressuring him out there. And he seems to be pretty racy.
And Laura Spinelli, and again, I think you're right. We probably have Riccardo Agostini, who would be the pro driver in that number 115, running 6th overall right now. Probably has started that. Again, that's a good call. And boy, fairly quickly marching up through the pack here. Not a big surprise. From 11th right now, Eduardo Liberati for top speed as we have a full course caution running in the 208 for the Asian Series. Has now moved up into 3rd in Pro-Am and 7th overall. And I think that's Liberati is just quick, period quick.
You see one car there not realizing the full course yellow came out, took a position, gave it right back. So that's the right
Smart
move in that
move,
situation.
Yeah, that's the 115. He's doing a nice job. That was Riccardo Agostini we were just talking about. So, yeah, pro driver recognizing the scenario here. And just to keep a track on it here, we're coming up 4 minutes. 4 minutes to that pit window. Boy, that breeze has picked up, hasn't it?
For sure. We still don't have any indication of why the yellow's out at this point. We'll keep an eye on that and let you know as soon as we find out.
I think there was somebody that spun coming out of the final turn, and is what we're understanding, it may have just grazed the wall there.
Oh, here we go, yeah.
Word grazed, okay. So got into it. So field under the full course caution right now. And as we said, coming up on 3 minutes to that pit window. And I thought when we had that shot of the flags, I thought I saw a little drizzle in the puddle sitting out there again. Maybe it was just the wind moving the water around, but I thought I might have seen a little bit of drizzle. And that could change things up here. At this stage, from what you've seen so far, too early to go to slicks?
I don't really see any parts of the racetrack that are drying significantly. Everything looks to still have at least a little sheen of water on it. So I'd say at this point, yes, I'd stay out in the wets. Doesn't mean it's going to change. It's not going to change later, but really at this point, it's still a lot wetter than I thought it'd be. So we might actually get to the end of this race and not have tires be an issue.
Well, like you said, you have that decision to make, but you can go to the dries, but it's better to finish on wets that are rooted than to not finish at all.
True,
and off the track. So
at this point, it'd be a very difficult call to go to slicks.
Yeah, especially if as we speculated, everybody started with the pros and now put slicks on and an amateur driver in these conditions.
For sure.
I think that's going to be tough. There's a look at Niederhauser. Again, he had actually, in the race this morning, had finished at the top, got clarification on that, and it was some of the pit stop procedural infractions, which generally means they didn't complete that full length of time in the pit. And that's why there were a few drivers that got moved back as a result. So Niederhauser right now really would like to be able to make that change up here and be able to put it together here. And looking at his season this year, he's always been quick, a few podiums, but he's never had that win. We called it this morning that he gets his first win. No. So now he's even more motivated to get that one done. So as we're running right now, Niederhauser leads it overall at this stage, and in the pro ranks for the European Series, Afik Yazid, the Malaysian driver in the 233, runs second overall, leading the Asian Series pro category. Then it is the Pampanini and Milos Pavlovic, and we're pretty sure it's Pavlovic in the car, would be leading the Pro-Am category for the European Series in third overall. Then the 133 of Florian Spengler. Next up in the pro ranks for the European Series in the 115. And then Shinya Mishimi in the 116, up into fifth overall, fourth in the European pro ranks. Let me make sure I've got that right here. No, that'd be third in the European pro ranks because Afik Yazid's showing in the overall blend, if you will. Then in sixth right now, second in European Pro-Am is the Spinelli and Agostini car. Then seventh overall would be the leader in the Asian Pro-Am category, Eduardo Liberato, in the number 208 that he'll turn over to Yuan Bois. And a pretty solid run. Boy, this is pretty impressive here, Spencer. Up into eighth overall right now. Your amateur class leader, that's the 163. And just to give you an idea of where they started in this one, it was a great opening lap sequence, that's for sure here. As I'm mandatory pit window was open. They started 10th, so a pretty solid run in these conditions, up against pros and pro-ams for that amateur crew to make that move up the order just a little bit here. It's Cedric Leimer and Leonard Genie for X-Bionic Racing, scooting up the order a little bit and leading the AM category. Second in the Asian Pro-Am would be Toshiyuki Ochai in the number 212. Second in the AM category is Shota Abkazawa. That's the 178. That is for the European AM. And looking third in the European AM is Amir Krenzia. That's the Israeli driver in the 112. And our pit window is open. I was wondering about that because I thought when that caution came out that Afik Yazid, remember, he'd made that pass for the lead, and now Niederhauser is there, and race control has just said we need to get 233 in front of Niederhauser to correct things, but cars into the pits.
Yeah, this is an interesting decision here to stay out because I know they might be waiting to see what the track conditions do, but these cars are going to catch back up, and if they don't get in the pit lane while it's still yellow, they're going to lose all the track position. Or sorry, if I confused myself there. If these cars come in under yellow now, they're going to lose all the track position as these cars then zip back out and catch back up. So maybe they're counting on the fact that they can get to the pit lane before the field that pitted catches them, but I'm not 100% sure that's going to be the case. So these cars might be vulnerable to getting shuffled back in the order depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, I was going to have to see how that plays out. By the way, another great story here. Starting in the 36th overall spot, it was the car that had qualified third in the European Gallardo category, and that's the Top Cats Racing entry of Neil Higgins and Paul Black. That car, 16th overall right now in the Gallardo. Guess what? All-wheel drive.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big advantage coming off the corners.
That thing's hooking up nicely and doing the job. Second in the Gallardo rundown, leading in the Gallardo category for the Asian Series is the Supachai Gallardo of Supachai Wiraborwampong. and doing a superb job sitting in that second spot. That car is the number 271. Third is the 174. That would be second in the European Gallardo ranks. That's the number 174 of Ivan Benvenuti. Doing a nice job for Imperiale Racing. And fourth in the European Gallardo ranks, completing the top three at this stage, would be the number 134. I think that's Andres Josefson and Ricardo Vera in that machine. So that's where we sit right now. Just going to check the next page of scoring here and confirm if there's anything of note here. Just want to make sure we're tracking. Yeah, there's back in 29th now as Liberati and Bois, but that's because of the pit stop, so that's changing things up certainly. And interestingly, the team that clinched, the driver duo that clinched the championship this morning in the European Gallardo ranks, sitting fifth at this stage, Carina Lima in that machine. And let's see, Li Chao and Zha Jiangpeng for the Asian Pro-Am category, sitting in the 14th spot in the overall rundown. But again, everything kind of getting shuffled at this stage here because we're in the pit window. Having a quick look here, we can actually get some weather we're looking at here, and there's that big, nasty-looking front that's moving. It looks like it's maybe just south of the track, and that may be some of those clouds we're looking at. Let's hope it stays there, Spencer.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to see this go dry and
have
a good fast race. Now, I've been watching here and see that Niederhaus is still leading. If he does come down pit road, I guess those cars that pitted on that first lap will be able to pass him. I'm curious as to how far back in the order he actually gets. This might have been a big strategy mistake for the top 3, 4, maybe 5 cars.
I think you might be onto something there. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out here. Now it shows that Fikizid, they have made that correction. He had let him through, Niederhauser had. And the interesting thing is this group is staying out. Right now, there's Fikizid, the overall leader. And Niederhauser right behind him. But we're looking at now coming up on half of that window gone. And at the pace they're running here, Spence, this is one of the issues too. I mean, normally they might be running in the wet here in the 220s, but under pace car conditions, I mean, they have to pit this next time. I don't think there's any choice now.
No choice. And this is an even stranger decision, I think, because now not only the cars that stayed out the first time in trouble, now these cars are going to get the first and second wave of pit stop cars now catching back up to them. So when they peel off and stop, the pace car is going to take the group behind them by. They're going to find themselves deep in the field in a race that they were running for the lead in not too long ago.
Yeah, but that's part of the game, isn't it, when you're learning and dealing with something like this? But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I wonder if they were thinking, well, they couldn't have been thinking, well, maybe it'll go green, and I'll have clear track and can just let fly for a little bit relative, because with the incident, there's no way that was going to go green that fast.
Yeah, and even then, they're going to have to do their stop under green, and it's going to be tough for them to get out back in front of the rest of the cars.
Yeah, exactly.
The cars that pitted basically had free, clear track to go catch right back up to some slow cars. And now they're going to have to try to make that stop and catch the field as it's going at full speed, assuming we go back to green here pretty soon.
As the old fairy tale says, things are getting curiouser and curiouser.
Right you are.
Again, the clock continues to tick, 50 minutes timed as we wrap up the European and Asian seasons here.
There's always another possibility.
Okay.
They know something I don't.
Well, that's possible. I think you're pretty good at reading strategy, but yeah, I guess you can't say for sure. And looking here at that 114, it's trying to see. Lights out on the safety car this time. So they're going to pit as it goes green. Yeah, I think they may have aired big time here. Yeah,
we'll see where Yazid ends up after everything shuffles through, but my guess is going to be very far down the order.
Yeah, and I mean, it's Yazid, Niederhaus, the number 116 as well, of Shinya Michimi and Kai Francesco Cozzolino. Jürgen Krebs didn't pit, so that car has worked its way up now into fourth, leading in the European AM category. Christoph Lenz, second in the AM category for the European Series, now fifth. Well, it's going to be interesting here. And the pace car starting to slow the field down. And the reason he'll do that is once there you see it, the pace car accelerates away. And the rule is that Afik Yazid there has to maintain the pace that the pace car had before it accelerates away to give the pace car the opportunity to build a little bit of a margin here. And the top 5 all stayed out at this stage. The rest did not pit.
But they're going to have no choice but to pit right now, and they're not. So
I wonder if maybe did they change this pit window sequencing. We heard nothing about it.
It's a good jump on the field right there.
Yazid just is gone. So now I'm a bit confused because there's no way they can come around. Niederhauser's in.
Yeah, the rest of the top 5, I think, pitted. That's why you had that big gap. It's a minute and a half left before that pit window closes. I doubt he's going to be able to get back around and get in the pit.
I just can't see that. I mean, they're lapping, and the fast car is the best time we've seen is a 2:18.
Maybe he wanted the air time. We're talking about him.
Maybe that's it, yeah. Ooh, little skate there. I mean, he's certainly making good his escape, but, you end up applying the penalties. I wonder if they just misunderstood here the timing here. Maybe, I don't know. I never heard, and I've been trying to listen fairly intently to race control to determine if there was a change to that mandatory pit window. And I'm sure going to listen when we hit 30 minutes in because they always say window closed.
There is a good possibility that the information can get back to us that they know about. So even then, it's still kind of an odd strategy to leave your pit stop for a green flag when you had a yellow. But maybe given that they missed the first opportunity, somehow they think this is the best way to minimize the damage that caused.
Well, that's a good point. Build up a big lead and then come in and
do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah, exactly. So 10 seconds left in what I'm now going to say we believe to be the pit window. Not a lot of spray on that part of the track anymore, is there?
No, it looks like he's carrying a good amount of speed too, so he's starting to hook up.
The mandatory pit window is now closed, so that was still in force. So basically, Afik Aziz, as you said, I mean, he's showing great speed, but a bad strategy call, it would appear here. And at this stage, he's going to suffer a penalty at some point. So maybe that's exactly what you are talking about, is he decided, this is being broadcast.
At this point,
let's get some
why not just go? Stay out. Do the whole thing. Here he comes.
Oh, boy. Missed it as he hits pit in by 35 seconds.
And very quickly here, the field's going to come by and put him well to the back. There's also another possibility. He may not have communications with his pit.
That's a good point,
and
too.
That would be a reason why that didn't actually work the way it was supposed to. Now we got a good battle going here for P2. Got a lot of cars here in contention, and these are cars that made that first round of pit stops, so they're strategy-wise right where they want to be.
Yeah, and a big gainer here will be the car that now sits second. That's the 163 leading in the Huracan Am category. Just a remarkable march up, timing that stop. That's Cedric Leimer and Laurent Genie for X-Bionic Racing. Second overall, although they might just get shuffled back. Ooh, he got a little wide there. And that pushed him back just a little bit. A couple of cars coming through. One of them, the 208, which is the Asian Pro-Am leading car right now of Yuan Bois. And the number 208, that's going to push him back just a little bit. I think he's going to lose a couple of other spots as well. And Mikko Eskalinen now is up into third. Well, second in the European Pro-Am class, fourth overall right now. That's what they needed to do because they came into this weekend, as we talked about, he and his teammate, Kelvin Snokes, leading in the points, but only by 3. And you can see Spinelli is up in front right now, and that is a battle here. Boy, this is close stuff.
Yeah, keep in mind, too.
This championship. Sorry about that.
That's okay. A lot of these guys that just jumped in are now having to do the same thing their starting drivers did. They have to learn where the grip is on the track, and now the track's starting to dry in spots, so they still have the challenge of trying to figure out what these cars can do given the track conditions. And they're doing a really good job. It was neat to actually watch for a couple of corners. Drivers are trying all different things. They didn't have the advantage, all of them, of those extra laps in the recon that the first drivers had. So this is trial by fire, and again, everyone's doing a great job. Haven't seen any cars off the road, haven't seen any spins, not a lot of car contact. So again, really impressed by the skill of this European and Asian group.
Really are doing an outstanding job, aren't they? Absolutely no question about that. Just confirming here that it was Spinelli and Agostini in the European Pro-Am category getting the win earlier today. And just checking, as I said, back at 6 for Escalinen and Snokes. And they're still behind at that point. And so it's not enough. They literally, Mikko has got to find a way around Loris right now. And he just jumps up at his second. He's 3.5 seconds back. But right now, he needs to get in front, and he also needs Spinelli to get a couple of more Pro-Am rated cars by him. Problem is, the next 2 Pro-Am cars in the queue are Asian Pro-Am cars. They're not going to play in the European point scenario. The next Pro-Am car is Giacomo Barri, who is now back in the 6th overall spot, and a good 3 spots adrift of Escalinen right now, and he needs him to get in front of Spinelli, so it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, last lap time was a 2:16.
Yep.
Track is already about 4 seconds faster than when it started. Still a long way to go to a dry track, so conditions now very tough. And the racing here has been shuffled thanks to our pit strategies and the different plans that the teams had. We have a whole new race here, and it's an interesting one.
Boy, isn't it? And like you said, you take a look here. You called it exactly perfectly. Looking to see where our early leader and pole qualifier, Patrick Niederhauser is. And we obviously saw the issue for Afik Yazid not making the pit window, but Niederhauser right now doesn't appear on the top 24 in scoring right now. So we'll see where he appears at the stage. Yeah, he's 34th overall right now.
Yeah,
from the lead.
And how far back?
At 6th in the year in the pro ranks.
A minute back, thanks to the fact that he doesn't have clear traffic and the leader does, so he's losing ground to the leader as we speak. So yeah, big mistake. Feel bad for the guys who might have been caught out there, not really having a good solid plan for when the yellow came out. These guys, it's not like they do the longer races where they have to deal with the strategy all the time.
Right.
A lot of this is new and getting thrown at them. So I feel bad for the team. They might feel that he let them down, or maybe there's a communication issue again, but what could have been a race win is now going to be a tough battle.
Boy, isn't it?
Deep in the pack.
Yeah, watching Giacomo Berri in the 131, as they came into 17 and got on the brakes, that car dancing a little bit, but because he's carrying tremendous speed, he just went from 6th overall in that lap to 4th overall in that number 131, and that would now move him up into 3rd in the European Pro-Am category. We were just talking about it, that Escalenen needs him to get in front of Spinelli. And the 126 having a quick spin. And that was Sergio Campagna who had running. That was one of our top 5 overall cars, Spencer.
Yeah, here we have a replay. Not sure what he did to get there. And it's kind of an odd place to spin in the dry, but in the wet, as you know, anything can happen. And fortunately, he didn't hit anything. Looks pretty harmless, but he does lose a lot of ground. Getting that thing turned around. And he's actually looking at the replay. Luckily, he didn't get stuck.
Yeah, I mean, with the rain we've had, and then as intently as it ran there for a moment, I think he was pretty lucky, wasn't he?
Yeah, for sure. We saw a lot of mud coming off of those tires as he left, but he is back underway. 15.2 from our leader last lap, so now we have another second off the pace. So this track is given back about a second a lap as it dries out. And I don't think we're going to be in danger of burning up those dry tires like we thought maybe at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, which is good here, because there are some spots still when you get on the Ullman straight and the front straight where it's still pretty damp. And nice job here. Boy, I tell you right now, Loris Spinelli, who is not considered to be the fastest guy in that car, and so would be Riccardo Agostini who started. I think maybe they did have Loris start, and it's now Agostini in the car, but he is flying right now and hunting for cool water.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's getting word from the crew that he should do that, or if he's actually feeling something underneath him from the tire. But yeah, definitely getting dry. 12 minutes now to go. I think everyone should be okay, but it certainly doesn't hurt to cool them while you can.
Yeah, just keep them alive maybe a little bit longer. And is that Niederhauser working his way up through the pack? It sure looked like the 109. We'll have to see where he settles in now at the end of this lap. boy, this one really has been turned on its ear. And doing it again, Alberto De Folco, the pro driver in the number 190, started dead last, did that pit stop right, driving brilliantly right now. He has just taken the pro class lead from dead last. What a story for the second straight race, Spencer.
Yeah, unbelievable job. I mean, he's last to the lead and running pretty quick here. He's got some cars ahead of him he can get. He's the fastest car on the racetrack at the moment. And, I think we could actually see him climb even further before this is over.
I wouldn't be at all surprised here. And again, you see him over, and then coming back in, that's the 102 again. Now Mikko Eskelinen, the Finnish driver, came in to this weekend with a 3-point lead in the championship. But after the win by the Spinelli Agostini car, we're finding themselves now needing a little bit more. Kelvin Snokes and Eskelinen, certainly talented, but just this stage, the margin is 3.5 seconds essentially between the 115 of Spinelli and the 102 of Eskelinen at this stage. Then third right now is the top car in the Asian series, the Pro-Am car. And I mean, if they are doing what we thought they would have done, Johan Bo would be behind the wheel. But in looking at the times, the 135 flat that are being thrown around out there, it might be Eduardo Piscopo. They may have stuck to their original plan. If that's the case, then Johan Bo needs to be congratulated for doing a superb job in those conditions.
Anytime you can make the announcers think the faster guys in the car,
Yeah.
you're doing a really good job, and that's what he did today.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the gap those lead two have opened up now. It's another 5 seconds from Eskelinen back to the 208. They feed their way down through and turn 17. You're under load there, of course, and so you generate more heat, which evaporates off the water a little bit quicker. But even down the front straight now, we're starting to see a dry-ish line, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, cars are definitely looking for water, and there's certainly some dry spots on the track. In fact, I would say down the front straightaway, the racing line is dry, and they're definitely going to be putting some heat in those tires now. Last lap, another 4/10 out of the lead now, so it's under 3 seconds to Spinelli for P2, and we got enough time to where this could be an interesting race at the end there.
I don't think there's any question of that. And just looking here, the number 110 up into 6th overall and 5th in the European Pro-Am. Started 8th in that class from 15th overall. A couple of wins this year. Came in here into the weekend 3rd in the points. And that's Adrian Amstutz and Giovanni Venturini for Conrad Motorsport. And they've had a good run, as has, and I just am really impressed with what I'm seeing here, because now in 2 races, the number 104, and if I'm reading this right, that is, make sure here, yep, that is the number 104 of Isaac Tutumlu and Harold Schlutter. And Tutumlu, the pro driver in that car, and they have again put together a very solid run, starting that car 11th overall. And they're working right now up into the top 8, and then DeFolco, and then Florian Spengler. And really, Spengler is the guy. He was in that group, that top 5, and he was the one in that queue that elected to pit. And you can see earlier, and he's actually the guy that's best in the mix right now in that group we saw in that lead duo early, or that lead battle early.
Yeah, times are now down in the 13s. Oh, we got a car going wide. That's going to be... Yes, he hangs on. Oh, my gosh.
Awesome save.
Is incredible save there. You're bumpy. It's still wet out there. There's not a lot of room between you and the tire wall, and I'm sure that definitely got his attention. It got mine.
There's the 190. It's the car right behind him who made that brilliant save. I couldn't quite pick that number up. It may have been the possibly the 187 of Mikhail Stefanov. But, that was big. Here comes the 190. That's Alberto De Folco. And once again, he is just flying out there right now for Raton Racing. Same color scheme, that's what caught me out, as Niederhauser. And De Folco right there, the back end, just rotating that thing around. Absolutely flying right now.
Yeah, as we talk about these times, remember, they're never going to get back down to those 202s because they're on the wet tire. So even if it was fully dry, they wouldn't have the grip that the full-on slick would provide. Another thing here, too, we're seeing it's almost single-file racing on that dry line because there's only one little lane. We talked about that. Passing now is difficult because you've got to move off of the dry track onto the wet track. These guys are doing it. And our 190 car, the Folco, he's able to do what he's doing in very tough conditions. You can't go offline and make up a lot of spots easily, but he's finding a way.
Yeah, he's just been superb. By the way, it was Isaac Tutumlu, the 104, that had that big moment and save over in Bishop Bend. And so just give him a little bit of a shout out here. As there comes DeFolco, and then right behind him, that is the number 110. That's Adrian Amstutz, but he overshoots. And very close as it forced the guy that he just did the overtake on there. I think that was Mikhail Stefanov. And Tutumlu saw an opportunity and tried to duck underneath. And at the last moment realized, I think he might be coming across my nose here. Now I'm going to try and sweep the outside.
Wow, that was
Stefanov. What a move.
Beautiful move around the outside. Definitely making the outside line work here. He had a lot more speed than the guys on the inside, to the point where I didn't think he was going to be able to hold on the racetrack, but he did. So it's just, this wheel-to-wheel racing is unlike anything I've seen here at Sebring in a long time. I think the conditions are helping make it exciting, but my gosh, these guys are racing as hard as I've seen in a while.
Oh, they are going after it. This is great fun. And with every lap, as you said, getting faster, so you have to have that feel, don't you, to say, all right, I can run an extra second quicker now, and if I run a second and a half quicker, I'm off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you have to be doing.
Here's another look. Good run out of 16.
Yeah, that was, again, the 187. I think it's Stefanov reading things just a little bit here.
He should be looking to get past before the turn, and side by side, but he's got the positions as is Stefanov, so he's made up another one.
It's a very wide arc. That's Giacomo Bari in the 131. That's the car that's third right now. And then coming up, the 196. And that has now been the, is that the 195? I can't tell on the monitor to see the 195 or 196. That's Rafael Giannoni, one of the drivers in that machine. And that is the 196. And there is a look at the 233. That is, again, Afik Yazid had been the leader of this race, missed the pit window, had to pit under green, everything going wrong for a guy who, which is a real shame because there's no question about his speed, Spencer. We've seen that right up near the front. He's currently 29th.
You feel really bad for a guy who had a shot at the win and through what we believe is no fault of his own is now mired in the back, and we could see he's still driving that thing. You know, he's still doing the best he can. The car's working really hard. He's not giving up, but he's got I think a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. Might be too little too late.
Right. The only thing that's kind of playing for him, there is your race leader, the 115 once again, of Loris Spinelli. The only thing that's that's going for Afik Yazid is he's the lone pro driver in the Asian Series, so he wanted the overall win. When that went away, now he can just go. He can just go out and have some woohoo.
Yeah, this is our leader trying to get through traffic. Look how wide they got and out in the slippery stuff. This is going to allow Escalini to catch up a little bit. The gap was 2.8 seconds. I think it's a lot less right now. So this is coming back to a race for the lead here.
This is going to be interesting, isn't it? Again, there's the hunt for the water. Just briefly, if you have to, but get over there to cool the tires off as we're in our final 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And that is the 113. So that's a car that's down a lap. And that's, as you said, traffic that they've been trying to get through. So Spinelli and Mikko Escalinen, that's the two cars right there. Then the lap car, the green car. And I think right behind them would be the 195.
Just over a second between these two. We're imagining probably 2 laps to go. So I guess these guys are probably heading to the white flag if my math is correct this time.
Yeah, just as you said it, they confirmed it on race control. White flag next time by.
Variety of different lines still. Keep in mind, these guys are now pushing these dry tires pretty hard. The track is dry in a lot of spots. They're not going to obviously pit now. They're going to take them to the end, but the car's going to move around a lot in the treads of these tires, and we're going to see these guys working these cars for everything they have these last 2 laps.
Yeah, it's been a great study, hasn't it? No question. And just kind of taking a look at the Asian Pro-Am category run, and not seeing David where he might be. Raul Rizzo, they're way back right now. That I'm not sure where that puts them in the Asian. They're 15th in the overall combined Pro-Am, but well back, while the people that they are racing in the points for when they came into this. Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati have worked their way up right now, leading in the Asian Pro-Am category. So it's going to make things awfully interesting in this championship as we wrap that one up too. But as the white flag comes out, that margin down to 1.1 seconds last time by as Escalena definitely closed in a little bit on Spinelli. But again, his problem is he needs to get in front of Spinelli, and then he needs to see Stefanoff and Giannone and Barry perhaps get in front of Spinelli too. If Spinelli has just overdriven and rooted those tires, it could happen. Stranger things, but it's just not likely, is it?
No, Spinelli had a little bit of a mistake as he was passing traffic last lap, and that allowed Escalena to close in a little bit. But since then, Spinelli has pretty much been spot on, been really quick, and opened up that gap again. My guess is we're going to see a little bit of a bigger gap as it crosses the line here to take the white.
And it flies. White flag, 1 to go. And let's see, where's the it went back up again, 1.3. So a nice response by Spinelli when he needed it.
It was only 2/10, though. I thought it might be more, so he might be just taking it easy, too. I mean, these guys are definitely struggling with his tires at this point. This will be an interesting final lap.
Up into turn 3. There's the little bend in 4. It's a tricky corner, this 5, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a decreasing radius corner. You know, the apex is very late, but the approach as you want to slide left, and it's a left-hand corner, so you end up getting in early pretty easily. And, it leads onto a long straightaway, so you got to do it right. It's like many corners here at Sebring, it's very tough.
Boy, that green car. Now we had a car that was down a lap that was green, but it didn't have the pace of this machine. I'm trying to pick the number up on who that might be, and maybe it is. Maybe it's just come good for them, and they are starting to come up through the pack. But Alberto De Folco, 6th overall, leading in pro. Once again from the back of the pack. Boy, look at the speed this green car has right now. You just need to be a little careful because you're coming up on a guy who's battling for a championship in his class.
This is very
trying to figure out the number on this green car. That's the 187 of Stefanoff. I think it is, because that last lap, look at the time Stefanoff set on that last lap, a 2:07.
Oh, wow.
I wonder if they, in that pit stop, if he put on slicks.
Perhaps, yeah. He came out of nowhere.
Holy cow. Yeah, absolutely. Well, now, yep, they just said new leader, 187 Stefanoff, so that is the car. You're right. He just came up from nowhere.
I thought that was a lap car out of the pits or something.
I thought
it was out they were battling, but no, that was actually for the lead. Yeah, I don't know if he went to slicks and now it's certainly coming to fruition, but my goodness, that was an amazing last lap.
It's the Artline Georgia team, and what lap he's put in onto the front straight. The 187 coming through, the checker flies, and confirmed. They get the win at a 2:07.325 last lap. And the previous lap, he did a 2:07.1 for fast lap of the race.
That is 7 seconds faster than the second fastest lap I see here. So my guess is he had to have gone to slicks.
Must have.
And come through the field. I feel bad for Spinelli. He drove a great race, had everything under control. But, you know, again, another strategy call decides this race. In a race that we didn't think was going to be that exciting an hour ago. My goodness. We get rain. We get strategy calls under yellow. We get tire choices, and it comes down to the last lap. Yeah.
Oh, it's just fascinating. And that Stefanoff in the 187. Boy, what a story that is again for Artline Team Georgia. And Mikhail Stefanoff, Russian driver, that, boy, did he put that lap. I mean, look at that. He made the pass and then opened up a lead of 3 seconds with a lap and a half to go. If that. Man, flying. Escalena ends up 3rd, and again, that was that duo, Escalena and his teammate, came in to this weekend in that category of Kelvin Snokes, his teammate, the Dutch driver, leading in the points, but 2 finishes, and only by 3, and a win when they finished with Snokes and Escalena finished back a little bit for Spinelli, getting a win this morning, and now finishing in front of him again should give the championship to Laura Spinelli in the European Pro-Am category. And let's see the Pro-Am category in the Asian Series. the winners there would be Juan Bo and Eduardo Liberati in the 2:08. Second in that race here would be the number 212 of Toshiyuki Ochai. And he was not a factor in the championship at all. Well, he was. I mean, he came in fourth, but he's a number of points back, so he's not going to make that up. Next in that class, with, Li Chao and Zhajing Peng. And again, they too back in the order just a little bit. So the problem here for, again, David Rizzo finishing behind, and significantly behind that duo of Juan Boa and Eduardo Liberati. Again, I think that should give them the Asian Pro-Am Championship as well. So, and you know, you had talked about it, that to settle the championships in a couple of these classes, some of the classes already done, but to settle them in these conditions, and then you see, you know, what a job, a talented driver, and apparently, we're guessing, a great strategy call in the pits, the difference it could make.
Yeah, it looks like he was the only one that made that call.
Yeah.
And it was very close. I mean, he came within a lap of not being able to do it, but he timed it right, and the team did a great job, made the right calls, and they are happy today.
Yeah, that was just remarkable. Look at that, just understandably coming unglued down there in the pit lane. And I am hoping, as we're going to be hearing an interview with him from Julio Rizzo with the series, I hope Julio can hear me. Julio, walk over to that car and tell us if there are sipes and grooves in those tires, or did they go to the slicks? Julio?
You made it. Overall here in Sebring Race 2, your feelings?
Amazing. I mean, we did a perfect strategy. It was very difficult in the beginning, but then it dried up, and the car was working fine, and it was just perfect. It was a lot of fun overtaking all those cars. It's like 2-3 overtakings every lap, and it was, the car is on the limit, as you can see by the guys did a great job, and I'm really happy. It's a good way how to finish the year.
Tell us, how was your very last lap where you came from fourth to win?
I mean, it was a little bit under pressure because I knew on the radio it's the last lap, so I had to overtake. Actually, it was quite easy because, yeah, I was much quicker, so it wasn't difficult, but it was quite under pressure. So, good.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that kind of explains it, Spencer, because when we first saw the car, he was up there, but then would have moments where he'd run wide, and obviously the slicks were still a little sketchy in those conditions, and then suddenly it just came to life, and he was able to come up and put together a run like that. Just spectacular stuff, and strategy.
Strategy for sure, but he did a great job on those slick tires, especially when he first left the pit, to keep that car on the road and not have any issues. He had to have been really patient, and you know, you might say we had an advantage at the end there because he put the slicks on, but he was the only one brave enough to go out there, and it paid off, and he's a very deserving champion today.
Absolutely. What a remarkable drive he was able to put together here. Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's one of the things here. You know, the drivers obviously, and you know this. You guys, oftentimes get the all the accolades and the like because you're the public face out there in the car, but it's a team sport, and getting that tire change done and having the strategy call to do that, this is a team sport, and it showed today.
I'm pretty sure that the team was probably asking him the whole time, do you think we can go to slicks? And so I'm sure he had a big part in the decision, but for sure, definitely a team effort today from everyone, getting the pit stops done, and just making sure everything was buttoned up before the race too, doing that odd little backwards reverse pit lane procedure before he even went green, making the call to come in the first yellow when it was time, and doing the pit stop timing right. I mean, it was definitely a team effort, and those guys got to be really proud of the effort they put into today.
Oh, I think so. And you're right. I mean, from the officials figuring out, let's do that, save the time, let's make this work. Pretty brilliant here. By the way, let's give another shout out here to the number 190 coming from dead last to 6th overall, winning European Pro, Alberto De Folco. Once again, his second win on the year. Just an absolutely amazing story for him. His other win, boy, what a track to get it on, Spa. He had a win there earlier in the year. So just fantastic what he was able to put together here, and just some great stuff. And Afik Yazid, who had led early, ends up with that missing the pit window. pitting under green, and I'm sure going to get even worse here because he's going to get a penalty for missing the window. So right now, 29th and 6th in the combined pro ranks. Yeah, that's not how you wanted that one to play.
No, and Niederhauser, who led a lot of the early laps too,
Yeah.
finds himself back there because he waited on the pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Fik Yazid, you could see the talent, and there's a reason that the folks at the Lamborghini Squadra Corsa Young Driver Development Program are very high on that young man. Obviously, he's tremendously quick, no question about it. Just got the strategy wrong here today, and that's all part of it. And look at that. You know, we've been watching the duo in the European Gallardo category. Karina Lima and Andrea Palma had gone to the front in the 188, and they'd won the championship earlier in the day. Right at the end, the number 174 of Ivan Benvenuti, who they call El Dato, the Duck, for some reason. Obviously, he liked the conditions, the Duck did, and was able to come through. And those Gallardos, strong efforts here, and again, all-wheel drive, so they were really able to make that work in the early going. And let's see, take a look at some of the other results here. We talked about Alberto De Folco, second in pro for the European Series, 8th overall, Florian Spengler in the 133. Great run for Florian, and he came in here not really in it for in the points either, but he had a number of good runs here. But boy, that's a great second place for him, and great to see it. Third in the European Pro, the number 126, and busy day for them. Sergio Campana and Fabrizio Crestani for Team Lazarus in the number 126, so they complete the podium in European Pro. Pro-Am we've talked about here with Stefanov. What a drive over Spinelli. And then Mikko Escalenen and Kelvin Stokes. Unfortunate that they came in leading in the championship, but looks like Spinelli is going to claim that one. And again, looking here in the Asian Pro-Am, Yuan Bo and Eduardo Liberati in the 208 over Toshiyuki Ochai in the 212, and Li Chao and Zanden Chen in the 296. That's your Asian Pro-Am podium. And then, of course, we talked about the Gallardos. Third in the European Gallardo would be the number 134, Andres Josephson, one of the drivers on board that machine, also with Ricardo Vera. So a good run for them to complete that podium. And just going to check here on the Gallardo for the Asian Championship. And it's just the, again, Supachai Wirabongmong able to finish this one, but down a few laps, so having a little bit of an issue out there. But, wow, we've seen it all today, Spencer, no question about it. And let's hope that that rain that moved through is done. And now the big reset tomorrow and the World Finals start, yes, which is a start from scratch. And I assume you're going to be coaching a couple of guys in that one.
Yeah, so tomorrow the classes are going to kind of mix differently.
Mm-hmm.
The pros and the pro-ams will have their own race, and then the AMs will join the Gallardos for a race. So I'll get to.
But it's all three of the series now together.
Yeah, but
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it should be. So a lot of these guys will be racing against, much like they did today in the international race. They're going to be racing against drivers that they don't really know and don't know how they race, and the mix will be an interesting one to watch. See how they interact together. I know there's definitely different styles of racing, especially when it comes to side-by-side racing between the Americans and some of the Europeans, and I'm not familiar with really how the Asians race. So we've got a lot of different things mixed together, and it should be another great day of exciting racing. You know, looking at today, the Pro-Ams on a day that I would think would be a tough one for the amateurs especially, they take top 5 spots and 8 of the top 10.
How impressive is that?
It really just unbelievable drives from some of these participants
and one
today.
Relatively brief full course caution.
Yeah. So
it could have been a lot different and worse than that. So yeah,
they have taken to this track extremely well over 2 days, and I think the European and the Asian teams are going to give some of the American teams a run for the money tomorrow.
Right.
You'd think the home field advantage would go to the American teams, but I think it's going to be a dead heat, and it'll be interesting to see which car or one will come out on top. In each race, and I'm hoping it's going to be my guys, Josh and Jim, in the AM race tomorrow. But they're going to have a lot of competition. We'll see.
This kind of sounds like that means you're not going to be available to work with me because you're going to be coaching guys in both of the different race groups, aren't you?
Well, I'm primarily here for Jim and Josh.
Oh, okay.
So even though I'm a big Madison Snow fan and there to help in any way I can, but
Well, you can promote him better from in here. You know?
yeah, absolutely. I can talk. I can tell.
Can you tell I
you
want
can talk
Spencer in
about
the booth
everyone,
with
and I'll
me?
just I'll focus on Madison and talk about him. But I think I might be able to do it. We'll
I
see.
can see you having two headsets on, this one and then the other one. All right, well, it's time for us to go to the podium. Spencer, thank you so much, and let's get down once again to Julia. Whoop, not quite ready yet, so this gives me an opportunity to, first of all, say thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming in, and obviously some great coaching for your guys today in the U.S. Series, and some great work here with me, and much appreciated for the European and Asian Series, and hope you can come and join me for a couple of those races as we get going with the World Finals and all of that activity tomorrow. And again, then we'll be seeing each other in, what, a week and a half?
Yeah.
When we put the voice on for the CBS Sports Network shows. So looking forward to that. So thanks so much to Spencer. And one more time, a big thank you. It's time to go to Julio Rizzo.
Here we go for the podium ceremony. We will start with the overall standings of the Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo Asian Series. So let's call on podium third place of the overall standing, Mr. Li Chao and Zhang Deisheng. Second place, Mr. Toshiyuki Ochai. And the winners of the overall Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo Asian Series last round, Guanbo Eduardo Liberati. Time to hand the trophies, so let's call Mr. Giorgio Sanna, Lamborghini Head of Motorsport. Third place for Li Chao and Zhang Deisheng. Second place for Toshiyuki Ochai. And the winners, Guanbo Eduardo Liberati. We call also Mr. Da Silva on behalf of Blancpain to hand the trophy to the winners. Mr. Da Silva. Mr. Hugo Da Silva handing the trophies to the winners, Guanbo and Eduardo Liberati. Here we have Mr. Da Silva. And time also for the Pirelli trophy. This time is Mr. Gianfranco Vaccari on behalf of Pirelli Motorsport to hand the trophy to the winners couple. Time for the group picture for our protagonists, raise the trophies, and champagne is about to arrive for yet another different shower comparing to the one we are experiencing now. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We can move on to the first podium of the European Series. As usual, we'll start with the overall standing. Let's call in for the third place on behalf of Leipert Motorsport, Mr. Kevin Snokes and Misko Eskalinen. Second place for Antonelli Motorsport, Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini. And the winner with an amazing last lap, Harald Schlegelmich and Mikhail Stefanov for Adeline Team Georgia. Let's have the national anthem of Lithuania. Let's call in for Mr. Maurizio Reggiani, Automobili Lamborghini R&D, to hand the trophies. Let's start with the third place for Liber Motorsport, Escalinen and Mr. Snooks. Second place for Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini. The winners, Mikhail Stefanov and Harald Schlegelmilch. Yet another trophy for our winners, handed by Mr. Hugo da Silva, manager of Blancpain. And as usual, we will have also the Pirelli trophy, handed by Mr. Gianfranco Baccari. We can have the group picture now, so raise the trophies, gentlemen. Raise your trophies. And champagne, it's on the way for you guys. Champagne, it's on the way for you guys. Here it arrives. And we are back to the Asian Series. Back to the Asian Series with the Huracan Pro-Am class. We call in for third place Li Chao and Zhang Dasheng. Second place for Mr. Toshiyuki Ochai. And the winners, Juanbo Eduardo Liberati. Huracan Pro-Am class. It's time for Mr. Cristiano Inverni, Global Series Coordinator, to hand the trophies. Third place, Li Chao, Zhang Dasheng. Runner-up is Mr. Toshiyuki Ochai. And the winners, Juanbo Eduardo Liberati. Of course, there's still a Pirelli trophy to be handed to the winners. One more run for Mr. Gianfranco Vaccari. Few seconds for the usual group photo, so raise your trophies, gentlemen. And champagne is on the way. While our friends are celebrating, just to remind all European drivers on podium to stay till the very end of the prize-giving ceremony for the family picture and for the interviews. And back to the European Series, Huracan Pro-Am class also in this case. We can start with third place for Liber Motorsport, Mikko Eskelinen and Kevin Snooks. Mikko Eskelinen and Kevin Snooks, third place for them. Pro-Am class, Mikko. Kevin, you're waiting on podium. Second place for Loris Spinelli and Riccardo Agostini. And the winners, Mikhail Stefanov and Harald Schlegelmilch. We ask Mr. Hugo da Silva to hand the trophies. Third place for Mikko Eskelinen and Kevin Snooks. Second place for Riccardo Agostini and Loris Spinelli. And the winners, Mikhail Stefanov and Harald Schlegelmilch. Yet another run from Mr. Gianfranco Baccari. Pirelli Motorsport prize, of course, also for the winners of the Pro-Am class of the Huracan. Time for the Pro-Am class group photo. So raise your trophies, gentlemen. Raise the trophies. Trophies high for the picture. And champagne is on the way. Asian Series Huracan Amateur class. Let's start with third place, Mr. Akira Mitsutami and Hajime Noma. Second place for Kimura Takeshi. The winner, Yusuke Hayashi. And Omacha 9. Hugo da Silva will hand the trophies under a pouring rain. Third place for Akira Mitsukami, Hajime Noma. Second place for Kimura Takeshi. And the winners, Omacha 9 and Yusuke Hayashi. Pirelli Trophy, Mr. Gianfranco Vaccari will hand the trophies to the couple that won today the Huracan Amateur class in the Asian Series, Omacha 9 and Yusuke Hayashi. Okay, champagne is on the way. If you would like a different type of shower, champagne, here it arrives. Champagne time. And it's up to the very last two podiums. They are both for the European Series. Let's start with the Huracan IM class. Third place for Steve Tandy, Imperiale Racing. Well done, Steve. Second place. Okay, we can go with the amateur class. Gentlemen, can you clear the podium? Okay, we are ready. So Steve Tandy, amateur. Third place, Huracan. Second place for Mark Inaken, Conrad Motorsport. And the winners, the duo from X-Bionic Racing Team, Cedric Lemaire, Laurent Jenny. Trophies will be handed by Marco Picci, project leader, Lamborghini Squadra Corse. Thank you, Marco, for awarding the trophy to Steve Tandy, third place. Second place, Mark Inaken. And of course, the winners, Laurent Jani and Cedric Lemaire. Mr. Vaccari will hand the Pirelli trophies to the duo. And we are ready for the group photo. No family photo. Okay, champagne is on the way. Cedric, wait for the family picture, of course. Gentlemen, European drivers, wait for the family picture. Don't leave the podium area, please. So on we go with the last podium tonight. Last but not least, the Gallardo. Gentlemen, Third place for Andres Josephson and Ricardo Vera. Imperiale Racing Duo made up by Karina Lima and Andrea Palma scored second today. Karina and Andrea Palma. And the winner, Ivan El Pato Benvenuti. Trophies are awarded by Mr. Giorgio Sanna, Lamborghini Head of Motorsport. Third place for Andres Josephson and Ricardo Vera. Second place for Karina Lima and Andrea Palma. The winner, Ivan Benvenuti. Group photo for them before the champagne. Of course, we ask all drivers to wait for the family picture. Champagne, it's on the way. Champagne.
Okay.
Okay, now all drivers from both the Asian Series and the European Series to the podium for the family picture. So everybody to the podium. All drivers come to the podium, please. All drivers for the family picture.
Manca il podio dei pro? Europei. Ragazzi, in gara 1 l'avete fatto? Perché hai fatto 2 volte il podio pro, manca una delle.
Perché sono gli overall e i pro M e i pro.
Però in gara 1 sono fatto i pro. No, sì. Come no? Io sono stato terzo, l'ho fatto.
Sono stati fatti gli overall.
In gara 1 sì, ma ora no.
Lui ha fatto considera 13esimo in gara 1, ma è finito terzo come pro nel podio.
Sono anche loro qua. Hanno premiato gli overall perché stavolta per la prima volta sono stati i pro am.
Esatto. Infatti noi ci aspettavamo come nell'europeo che si premiasse l'overall, è stato strano in gara 1.
Infatti però non abbiamo mai premiati proprio perché di norma non si premia. Ditemi voi.
Quindi in gara 1 avete regalato le coppe.
Che si fa? Ci stanno le coppe? I pro? No. Però questa è la prima volta in cui abbiamo solo pro am sul podio overall.
Okay, all drivers to the podium. Also, we call for the pro drivers of the European Series to the podium, please.